you got a couple different ways that you can do it, but the most effective way that I tell people is when you set up your original plate, you're going to set it up, the plate itself, how you want it, right here. So let's say you have a 4x5 plate, and I tell, again, you can do anything you'd like, but I typically do no margins and make the plate the same size that you're going to want to set it up for. Alright? So here I have a 4x5 plate with no margins. I'm just going to type in Tom, and as you can see, everything matches. And the matrix itself can be found under Professional Tools. So if you need, this is the most important aspect to remember about a matrix. If you need to save the matrix, do not save it after you've created it. Save the plate that you're going to use continually on your job as your actual default. You're going to pull this up every single time and change this. You'll come over here to your Professional Tools. Where did it go here? Let's see. Alright, this little button right here is for your matrix. It'll ask you if you want to go into manual mode. You'll say yes. Here is actually where you define the sheet. So let's say you have a 20 by 20 sheet. In your preview, you're already going to see how many of these plates will fit. So this grid up here is actually going to show you perfectly how it's going to come out. It'll give you the lines and the rows right here. And here is actually where you're going to set your margins. So if you remember, I said don't set your plate up with the margins because you're going to be cutting that plate out of a larger sheet of material. So here is where you'd set up your margins. If you do not need any margins and you're going to perfectly cut the plates and use the edge as part of the plate here, you will just leave this as 0. So let's say that you want to cut out the grid marks though. If you want to physically cut it out, down here you have your cutting tool axis, and you would change it to whichever tool you have set to actually cut stuff out with. So obviously you're not going to cut out Tom out of the center of here. You'd want to cut these grid marks. So you'd change it to whichever tool you want. So in this instance I'll just change it to green. Once you click the green check button, it will go ahead and show you what your matrix is. And as you can see how it changed the grid marks to the green? This is going to show you that this is physically going to be different properties than the black. So you'll engrave this, and then as it's done, it'll come back through and cut these out. That's why it's important to change the colors. When you come to the colors, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but GravoStyle actually goes in order of these colors. So what it'll do is it'll engrave everything black, anything that's red, and so forth. So because green is after black, it'll physically go ahead and engrave all of these black toms and then go ahead and cut through all of the grid marks for you. That's how you set up a simple matrix. But the reason why I stated that you don't want to save this is when you save this matrix, you cannot change the matrix. You will physically have to go in and change every single one of these boxes. That's why it's important to only save the default plate that you're setting up. And that is how you do a simple matrix.